Yes. Okay. So again, hi everybody. Thanks for coming in. We know that it's quite a slow market out there with all the things, but nothing but slow for us behind the scenes with everything that we're getting up to, both the game wise and marketing wise and everything else. We of course, as the Genesis Man is nearing the end with the soul shards and with the loot pots, it had already ended. It coincided with some national holidays, so a big part of our team did kind of get going a little bit of a break, but now we're back at full force. Jumping onto the next sprints and next development features to ship them to you, and so today we'll go over all of these stages and kind of, let's say, feature shipments that are planned for the next 3-4 months. So anyways, like during the summer and going into the autumn, and we hope you'll be really as excited as we are for those features to launch. And as always, there's the AMA channel that everyone's welcome to drop a question in, either the channel in Discord or there's a chat for the stage here, where you can also drop the questions, and we'll be going all over them with each section. And so the moment as it stands, so let me pull up the roadmap real quick, unless someone erased it from my Miro board. Uh, 1 second. Okay, I can find it. I just had the image pulled right up. 1 sec. So, anyways, perhaps you can, Edgar's, you can fill a bit in while I find that image, which for some reason disappeared in front of my eyes.
Yeah. So, in order to come up with the roadmap, one thing what we did, we really wanted to add these things step by step. So whenever we introduce something new, it actually is built on previously built things. So whatever you have learned in the Zeeverse, you will be able to use those lessons even further. And the same thing applies to all the assets as well. So basically, whenever there is something new created, it just adds more and more utility to things what you already have. And equipment will be one of examples for that. So we just recently finished the mint. There was actually almost 10,000 loot boxes minted, which is actually quite a huge number. And now we are looking to add and empower those items with all the future updates. But I think we can go through them step by step. Feel free to ask any questions, any concerns, ideas, whatever. And yeah, let's get it.
Sweet. So yeah, I found the image. So just to sketch it in a little bit, we have kind of 5 big stages to go over for the roadmap, and that's just for the development. And what we consider is that after these 5 stages and 5 releases are done, maybe some smaller ones are going to come in the middle. Maybe there's going to be an opportunity for an incredible event with some big partner that we, haven't planned yet. These opportunities can come up at any chance. And so then, of course, some things may shift, and priorities may kind of shift a little bit as well. But in general, these 5 stages, once they're done, we want to consider to shift Zeeverse into beta. So as you may know, it's currently in alpha, and our goal is that by the time all of these releases are made with the features, we will have a comprehensive game loop with a link system, but also more importantly with replayable content and end-game content that you can do with PvP and live ops events, recurring ones, which means that at that stage we'll be able to consider Zeeverse to go into beta. And that's going to be a huge milestone. Of course, it's just an emblem that you can slap onto a product whenever you see fit. But our standard is pretty high for what we would a beta yeah, when this next probably in autumn, once all of these things that we're going to speak about today gonna be implemented. So, in just to sketch it out, the themes for the development, in chronological order, what we're going to cover is first kind of big batch of things is called power ups. The next one is going to be live quests. The third one is PvP. Then we're going to have a big update coming for shamans themselves, and then the fifth one, the bigger one, is around fishing and professions. And so I guess we'll just start with, the first one, or even, the update 0 that might come today or tomorrow. And that's the bridging of the Z token to the Arbitrum and Magic Swap. And perhaps, Edgar, you can speak a bit more about that.
Yeah, so the token is already bridged. So we used official Arbitrum bridge. And today or tomorrow, so we already passed the DAO approval for Treasure DAO. So V token will be listed on Magic Swap. So deposits for Arbitrum version of the V token are already done from the development. So finally, you will be able to sell or buy the token at much better fees. Let's put it that way. And if you don't own the Magic token, I'm pretty sure you can use any token you want for a swap through the 1inch. So that's 1inch is like a router, and you can pretty much swap any token in any token by using that. So yeah, but that's coming today, tomorrow. We will deploy liquidity. It will probably take maybe a few hours or a day for the token to actually show up on Magic Swap. But this is pretty much done. Yeah.
Yeah. And just so you guys know, V is going to be the second token ever listed on Magic Swap, the first one being the Battleflies game, and V's being the second one. And I don't know, perhaps we can pull out the card with like the investment card if you'd like, Edgar, to kind of mention some other exciting things about Zeeverse and Treasure.
Yeah. So we are like really, we can really have matured to build this partnership with Treasure as a long term. And yeah, sorry, it's a third token. Yeah. But yeah, and with every step we go in, we just become closer and closer with Treasure. And this is also part of their like future strategic investment in the Zeeverse. And for the Zeeverse, we already like disclose. Some of you got the idea and message from one of our last tweets about Mechanism. So Mechanism is the lead investor in the seed round with Randy Kane. Some of who know that Mechanism is basically tier A VC capital, and they are like really picky in terms of what projects they work with, and so we are like super happy that they're leading the Zeeverse seed round, and together with like Treasure, we will expand this kind of strategy even further. So the V-listing on the Magic Pair is just the beginning, and in the future we will leverage Treasure ecosystem even more.
Yeah, so exciting news on that front. And now, perhaps let's get into the roadmap and the very first update that we plan to release in the coming weeks. I'd imagine it may take 2 or 3 weeks to complete and polish out and test and so on. But the first big update is gonna come, and its purpose is gonna be to give your V another use in game. And that update is gonna be called, let's say, power ups. So, what are power ups, Edgar?
So power ups, as you have seen, like not all Z's you have are equal. some of them may feature attributes which give you like a boost for HP or for attack or any of the specific stats. So by introducing power-ups, we will bring in really strong utility for V token. But more importantly, we will give ability for players to upgrade their Z attributes specifically. So you will be able to pick out which attributes you want to level up, and by doing that, you will be able to like invest in angle which best support your strategy. So this is something what originally was planned together with the previous mint, but we decided to split it in parts so we can do this in a really quality way. So essentially, it will create a really deep sink for the V tokens, and will give you flexibility to upgrade specific Z traits to make it stronger in defense or more tanky-ish. And essentially this will play a big role of how valuable your Z is when you can withdraw it and trade it. As
So
yeah,
yeah, so how it's gonna maybe look in practice, right? So that when you get, let's say your Z, you have a starter Z, you may know that it has four trait slots. So we use the term attribute and trait interchangeably. We probably should, at some point decide which one. But
yeah,
essentially, there's four slots, and each of them can be either HP, attack, defense, crit, or speed. And what can happen is that you can get the same trait in several slots. So it may happen that two of the trait slots give you an HP boost and two of them give you, let's say, a defense boost. And this means then that your Z is naturally a predisposition to be a tank because its traits that the type of whom cannot be switched has 2 HP and 2 defense traits. So it naturally may be a better tank than, let's say, the same type of Z but with different traits that, let's say, has attack and crit as two of the main traits that have fallen out for them. And so it means that now when you get new Z from X that drop from dungeons, you can start hunting for the specific trait combinations that you might want to use for the purpose, whether it's for PvP or PvE, and what team composition you want to go for. And the cool part is here that, let's say, if up till now both the type of the trait and its level, and so far there's been only 4 levels: common, rare, epic, legendary. So and it just switched with the percentages, right? Then now we're gonna have 20 levels, and all new Z that you get from eggs, all the trades that they get, they're gonna be at a level 1, and then you'll be able to use your V tokens to level up those trades. And so that's kind of where we're going towards, so that when you get a new Z that may be the same type, you still may be interested in opening up the egg because its combination of traits might be better. And a bit on that side also, that in the future, maybe we'll introduce some other ultra rare, ultra cool item that may allow you to swap the traits, let's say defense for attack or whatnot. But in general, it's going to be like a training facility or so where you'll be able to take your Z at their base stat. And of course, one important thing to mention here is that it's going to come with some UX improvements, some of which you guys have so nicely put out in the suggestions forum, just to make it easier for you to compare the different Z and their base stats and figure out for yourself, what's the best opportunity here. And so that's kind of also a note to make on each of these updates, that there's going to be one main feature that the update will be built around. But most often, these updates will going to come with tiny, bug fixes, UX improvements, flow improvements, design changes, and so on. And so improving the view for the Z is like one that we're going to tackle for this update as well.
yeah. So like that will definitely change the balance, and will just allow you to like focus more on your like specific Z traits. But more important, I think it will open up really strong channel for V demand. And as we are building the game, we are also slowly and carefully testing the economy. So yeah, so this is it will change the game a lot. I won't lie. Uh, but the things what will this is like still like the preparation for setting up the stage for PvP tournaments and later shamans joining the battles. But we'll touch on a bit later. So
Perhaps something worth mentioning with this is that finally the Z withdrawal as well, and what kind of the page where the game is coming from, that it's not only the you and made the different the people. There's going to be more ways to influence and improve them, and level them up and how the ones. And of course, it's going to be a separate collection, and perhaps some of you, if you know Roro and how their beasts are displayed on OpenSea, there's like the image of the beast, and it has a frame with some stats, and so that's something we're looking to do as well to make it very user friendly for you to discover and explore the different Z on the marketplace to compare their stats, so that you can know their level in advance. You can know what their base stats are, and kind of it's going to be very exciting to see how the market dynamics go as well.
okay, I
Okay,
think you're a bit uh, breaking
okay,
up.
I'm in this booth here, and the booth has we have this meeting booth in the office, and ironically enough, internet in it not just isolates you from the sound, but the internet as well. But is it better now?
It's a bit better, yeah.
Okay, so I'll just try to move a little bit closer to the doors. So yeah, as I said, Z withdrawals, Z power ups, an OpenSea collection for the Z, so you can look through them and compare them well. That's kind of the first big thing that we're getting onto with this first update that's going to come in the next weeks.
Yeah.
So I don't know, unless Edgar, you have something else to add here, we can move to the others, to the second part.
Yeah, let's move forward.
Okay. Oh, one more thing to add with this. Well, I don't know. Perhaps we'll just switch to marketing afterwards and our plans for that. So let's just go to through the in-game stuff first. So the second part is an update that we're calling the live ops update, or live operations live quests update, whose goal is to take what we've learned from the last two events, from the Curve event and from the Genesis, combine the best things and use that as a funnel to onboard loads of new people into the game, without straining the development. So, as you may imagine, each time we design a cool event like this with characters, mechanics, a storyline, assets, and so on, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work for the whole team, for the developers and so on. And of course, even though we work on the event, there's so many things in the backlog that we want to work on, the bugs, the features, all these things that you've guys been requesting, and naturally that we really want to build all those things. But the issue so far has been the capacity of the team, because if the whole team is focused on this brand new event with new mechanics and everything else, there's not much development resource left for the core things. And so this is what the update is going to come with, essentially allowing us to trigger these recurring mini events for new people to come in, while the team can spend the time working on on other important things, on all these features. And the way it's going to work is that you've been around for the Curve event, you may remember that the way it worked is that you come into the game, there's these voxels that drop from the sky that you had to pick up, bring to Waka, and he would give you basically a free mint. And so what we're doing is, we're developing this concept of a harvest festival and a weekly harvest, which basically pays tribute to indigenous culture, where, as you may or may not know, corn was like a huge thing for them. They had deities and different gods around corn. They had these festivals. They had all of this kind of um, almost like a religion built around this fruit. I don't know, vegetable. And so what we're doing is we're gonna introduce a thing called a weekly harvest. Perhaps at the beginning, we're going to start with a weekly event. And what's going to happen is that once a week, it's going to be like, like a Friday night party in Zeeverse. You're going to come in, we're going to trigger an event. And what's going to happen is that across the whole map, we're going to spawn a bunch of these corn husks that you'll be able to run around and collect. And then once you bring it to a designated spot, and we're building some story and some cool characters around that as well, you will be rewarded with a free mint. That free mint is going to be our new type of loot pot that we're introducing. And and you're like, oh damn, guys, you just sold a bunch of loot pots. What the fuck is going on? Well, so the thing is, the Genesis loot pots that you may have gotten for yourself are what they are, the Genesis loot pods, and there's no more items that are gonna ever be spawned from them. The supply that's out there, it's out there, and our goal now will be to grow their value and importance in the game. But clearly, if we're onboarding a bunch of people into the game, they have to have stuff to wear as well. And since we don't have dungeon drops, at least yet, this is our way of introducing, the base items or the base common sets in Zeeverse with, uncapped supply. And it's not a mint, it's like an open, well, it is technically, I guess, a mint, but it's an open edition, always open loot box that's going to be a base for a bunch of new cosmetics to come in the future and for a bunch of new players to get involved into this whole thing. And so the plan is that each week we have this event that when you participate and you manage to claim one of these, let's say, corn husks, you will be rewarded with one loot pod. And the loot pod is going to contain a number of items from 10 to 15. And what we plan to do is every week or every couple of weeks rotate the items inside of them. Some of them perhaps are going to, come from our collabs with different projects. And so, the loot pod is going to stay the same. Let's just call it the Zeeverse basic loot pod or whatever. But the cool part is that it's going to be there, it's going to be always working, and you will always be able to buy one if you'd like. But the plan is you have these free mints that worked so well for the curve event. That's basically the reason our servers broke for the first event in January, at the end of January, is because it was a free mint. And so many people are excited about free mints, especially if it's in game. And so that's what we're doing with these is that we have weekly events we trigger and this kind of continuous open mint that new people who just got aware about Zeeverse will be able to come in and part in something exciting right away. So without having to wait for a couple of months for an event to be developed, we're going to have these things every week. New people are going to come in, they're going to get a loot pod, going to mint something for free. There's going to be an activity, a party, and then we're going to use these weekly harvests and weekly events to basically more earn to the
I think you're rugging again a bit.
regular
Yeah.
allow us
Uh,
to no use by
no, it's really bad.
other creators.
Yeah, it's really bad. Maybe you can switch to hotspot. Something.
Okay, take
Yeah.
over.
So yeah. So yeah, regarding the Harvest Festival, we understood that there's so many good things what we had from the Curve event. We had so many good things we had from Soulkeeper event, and we want to give chance for these experiences for players to live through those experiences. So we will with this we will make like Zeeverse first regular live event, and this is something what will fuel the growth of Zeeverse from Web3 audiences, and at the same time we believe this will add more and more value to Genesis loot pod items because uh, for item to be rare, care on some background. What we will be minting right now will be this background and base equipment for all the new players will join the Zeeverse. And once they learn about the base equipment, they will start to learn more about this Genesis equipment. And as we will be adding like special perks and bonuses for all of these items, um, we will be using this new set to basically make a base balance. And then we will be empowering the Genesis items based on that. So I think it will be something really fun. It's something where everybody likes to party. So I remember when we had these curve event opening ceremonies, it was quite a wild experience. And if we can combine in that with like a play to mint quest experience, I think it will be just amazing thing to join over and over again and compete in real time. And yeah, that's something we are really excited about. And more importantly, uh, it will allow us to funnel in more and more players while we can keep our development team focused on building stuff what you have been requesting. And like I think we can move probably to the next part on our roadmap. We may, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. We can discuss anything more in detail. But the PvP is something what we have really matured to build and give players ability to compete.
Can you hear
Is
me? Sorry.
Yeah, you good?
Okay. Yeah. All good now. I started chatting beforehand, but finish your thought, and then I'll add a little bit more about the loot pods. Just for a
Okay,
second.
yeah, I almost jumped into PvP, so let's finish up with the loot bots and
Yes. So
then go.
another cool part here is, guys, so that the mechanic we had with these items dropping somewhere on the land and then people running and competing to complete them, it was really fun. We found it's competitive, it's fun, and if there's some cool reward that you can get at the end, we think it's going to work out very nicely. And additionally to that, since we're going to have, let's say, this one base loot pod, we can still keep it fresh every week or every couple of weeks just by rotating and putting in new items. And one thing that I'm personally looking forward to is starting to collaborate with other games to develop these cosmetics for them. And then let's say, we can dedicate 1 week just for the game X or the game Y, and say, hey, this week, this event, let's say, is sponsored or it's made in collaboration with this game. And all the items you can get in there are just, related to this other game, whether it's some treasure game or some other ones. So this will be a really cool, reusable, scalable, and fun way for us to do two things: to bring in new people and to free up development resources for our team to work on, on the more important things. So that's kind of the plan there. And yeah, I guess unless there's some questions about this, let's jump into the PvP, which is the next big update, right? After the live ops. So the third update, and this one may come, I guess, in 1.5 to 2 months or so. So take it away.
It may be faster, but we'll like see and do everything we can.
Yeah, don't want to overpromise on the
Yeah,
dates too much.
yeah.
So
So go ahead.
okay, I'll go. So yeah, the PvP update. Uh, the goal for this one is to finally release an MVP arena to start hosting the tournaments that we currently have weekly in game, and not just to host them by ourselves, but to have you guys participate and make them automatically for yourselves. So this means that we're gonna introduce a new little island or a lobby that's gonna act as a PvP waiting lobby. So let's say there's a portal somewhere in the Zeeverse main lobby that you can click. Then you have to choose the bracket that you'd like to participate for the tournament, and then you go into this waiting lobby. And once the waiting lobby fills up with 8 people, you begin a quick, nice tournament that will, let's say, ideally take you around 15 to 20 minutes to complete. So, a really nice, cool, replayable way for you to get in some action between, let's say, dungeon runs or whatever else, once you have these 10, 15 minutes for casual gameplay. And also through that, perhaps even earn some V, because the idea is that there's going to be a pot. So when you enter the tournament, you'll have to put some V tokens into the common pot, and then the winner, or the first and the second place, are going to split it. And that way, you'll be able to launch these tournaments as often as you guys want. And then I imagine we're gonna make once in a while, maybe once a month or so, bigger tournaments, like we do now. But so just to kind of, have a way for you to have some cool replayable content on daily basis. And so that's why we want to keep them small. So let's say 8 to 16 people. Of course, we'll see how we do. We'll have to look at the data, but that's the plan. And another cool part there is that it's going to come, of course, also with PvP UX improvements. For example, right now, when you challenge other people for dueling, it's just a name that pops up. But we want to make, of course, a proper dueling window so you can know who your enemy, of course, is, what their team composition is, what their level is, and so on. Those are going to come. And another more exciting thing here is that this PvP update is going to come with a new leaderboard. Because as you may know, currently our leaderboards, they're not too useful. Like the one we have right now, it just displays, is basically like a rich list of people who have the most Z's, and it counts both the acquired Z's and the purchased ones. And so the people at the top there are the ones who pretty much have the most llamas purchased, which is, awesome for them. But with this PvP update, we're going to release a leaderboard where essentially each tournament you participate in, if you win the first place or a second place, let's say you'll get a number of points. And then over a month or a PvP season, you will be collecting these points. And then at the end of the season, we'll reward the ultimate PvP masters of Zeeverse. We're still thinking about ways to do it because, there's one obvious risk is that if we attach any monetary value to the leaderboard, let's say V tokens or whatever else, there's an incentive for people to create a bunch of accounts and just farm the tournament points, which is something that we, of course, want to avoid. So one way to do it is to have these PvP winners more of a status symbol. So let's say assign those winners a special cosmetic or a special title in the game, or some smaller prizes. It's still something that we have to figure out the best way to do. You're more than welcome to drop your suggestions in chat and tag me, for example, or Edgar's here. But yeah, so something that we always have to consider with Web3 gaming is the question of whether there's an incentive for someone to launch a Chinese bot farm with 100 people or bots.
One thing I wanted to add is after the soul mint, we actually have like this soul shard security layer in place. So only players who have soul shard will be able to participate in those tournaments, and we will still, of course, like figure out what's the best reward the players. But another thing is it requires soul shard. So if we see some people like cheating or doing some wrong stuff, we will most likely ban those users. So whenever you are like considering to do that, you are also keeping in mind that these bots are risking their soul shards. So yeah, I think it's a matter of like choosing the right reward and a way to basically recognize the biggest and most active players in the Zeeverse. So yeah, it's just open to suggestions. So yeah.
Yep, 100%. And so, yeah, about the bots and everything else, we are yet to implement, of course, some moderation tools and admin tools to make it easier for you guys to report suspicious accounts and for us to, have more tools to deal with them. let's say, banning for a certain amount of time, or something to investigate. We have a very comprehensive data setup and analytics dashboard, and we can track a lot of suspicious activity there. But we're definitely gonna invest time in developing more moderation tools. But yeah, as Edgar said, even if you see a bunch of people, let's say, with similar names and different numbers in the game, yes, it may mean that they are trying to set up some bots and train and farm something. But that's specifically why the soul shard system was there, for them to prevent them and to introduce some risk for them on doing it. Because even if they farm a bunch of V tokens, in order to withdraw them, they will have to buy a soul shard, right? And so it is a risk and an investment for them, and a big hurdle, and hopefully a good protection mechanism for these kind of scenarios. So that was something to go for the PvP. I don't know, you want to add something
Yeah,
else?
like the bottom line is 24/7 competitive experience, and it will just evolve together with the game, and most likely we will add more modes to Tournament Island. For now, it will be a single elimination format. So either it's 8 or 16 players that join the island. It's basically last man standing there. You will be able to uh, switch your Z's, your equipment, while you're in the tournament island to basically change your strategies on the fly. But all that will be limited in a bracket uh, where you're at. So you won't be able to join the level 10 bracket and switch your Z to level 20. So I think it will bring really interesting angle to the gameplay as you're seeing your opponent and as you're being able to adapt your like go to battle strategy in real time before the fight kicks in. So I'm myself, I'm like super excited about this feature, and we are like literally cannot wait when we can offer this, as it will give way better tournament and PvP experience than the current tournaments we are organizing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So next up, the shaman update, aka the update when we want to introduce shamans into the battle to increase the depth and complexity and opportunities in the battle. And this update is going to come with the shamans themselves entering the dungeons and the PvP arena. It will come with the long awaited at that point item buffs. So all the cosmetics you have, this is when they will start getting stats. And with that update, we also plan to upgrade the dungeons a little bit. Level wise, it's not going to change most likely, but we want to introduce some more variety, more types of dungeons, and just kind of visually upgrade them so they're a bit more interesting to be in, with a few new tweaks and things to look at and to kind of play around with. So that's when to answer, because there's been a question in the AMA channel now about, so when will new dungeon stages will be added beyond level 70. Is the answer to that is that probably not very soon. And the main reason is that the game is still in alpha, and even when we enter beta, if we allow certain people, the early players, to level up to some insane levels to like 150, 200, and so on, it's going to be very hard to balance once a big number of new players join in. So unfortunately, well, it's maybe something that's not very exciting, but that's something that has to be considered for the stage that we're in, is that we have to have a certain cap for players, so that when the game goes, let's say, mainstream, and we start onboarding more Web 2 players, something that we're going to talk about in a moment, is that there's still ways for people to catch up. Of course, there's advantages for early players, obviously, in all of these several things that you guys, Jake, taken part in, but we cannot have this gap be too large, because otherwise it's just gonna break the onboarding experience. Because you imagine you're just gonna have a bunch of players who are really leveled up, and then a bunch of players who are super new, and we're gonna have a hard time filling up this middle layer.
Yeah,
So in terms of
actually, a lot of players will already be super leveled up because level 50 is still like really, really on the high side. But as we are still in alpha, uh, we want to more focus on replayable experience rather than just
leveling up,
more
yeah.
linear levels, what may be enough for a week or two. So yeah.
So yeah, so the goal here is to have end game content instead. So like these events that we spoke about and the PvP tournaments, kind of so that once you level up, that's when you can start. Same as with World of Warcraft, once you level up, there's end game content with PvP and all of that. So that's something we're looking forward to as well. So that's once you level up, you don't have to really go and grind dungeons. You can, of course, you can go if you want to get currency and resources, but that you're focused on, let's say, honing out your team and collecting the different Z's, and once the professions come in, which is the next update with the fishing, kind of involve that into your gameplay in order to fill up that time with things that are level independent for the game. So, and at that, I guess we can also mention, well, I mean, move on to the next thing, which is the last
Yeah.
fifth big update, which is the
I wanted to
fishing.
add actually,
Yeah,
sorry, I
go
want to add a few things on the shamans. So as they're joining the battle, they will be playing a pretty big role and add like depth to the combat system. So in practice, it will work like every full circle. Basically, you will be able to use your shaman once. Uh, Based on equipment you have, it will give like passive bonus to all your Z's. But the moment you will use it, you will be able to choose between using it on your friendly units, either to heal or buff some of your Z's, or you will be able to attack opponent. So this gives us more flexibility for user intervention in a battle. So adds much more strategy and finally gives really strong core utility to equipment. Yeah, so this is just, and this is also a base, very important base for fishing, because in order to use consumables in a battle, you also have to have this ability to bring them in, and shamans will be the responsible ones for bringing them in. So this is really big structural update, and a lot of future systems will be built around that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So exactly. So the last one being the fishing, which is going to be the first of our profession lineup. And the fishing is going to be interesting because it's also going to be the next thing that you'll be able to do in Zeeverse, independent of your level, or maybe dependent. We'll actually have to see. Maybe there's something interesting, as we can open up new items on fishing with levels. But essentially, the way it's going to work is that you're going to have a fishing rod, and some of these fishing rods may start falling out way earlier in some of these harvest events and in the loot pods that we'll be doing on a weekly basis. But essentially, you'll have to have a fishing rod and a bait that you'll be able to either get in a dungeon or buy from a merchant that's also coming. He's hanging in there, has been for a long while. We kind of put that teaser in there, and it's been, dragging the merchant up for a very long time, and we'll see if we can make a little cool visual update for him. But essentially, yeah, the thing that's hanging on the rope there is our NPC merchant, whose goal is to kind of, be the NPC who you can sell and buy things from. And it's going to basically work as an automated market maker that Edgar can tell you a bit more about in a minute. But that's going to come with a fishing update. And so you're going to have a fishing rod, a bait, and then there's going to be a lineup of different fish that you can get out from the river depending on the combination of the fishing rod and the bait you have. Maybe even a level. We'll have to look into that. And then you'll be able to use that fish. Each fish is going to give some different consumable buff that you can use during the game. whether it's healing or damage, or it can be a bunch of different things. And of course, with that, we'll also want to introduce a bunch of cool Easter eggs and some cosmetics that you will be able only to get out from fishing. So some items they'll have an ultra low drop chance, maybe some special aquatic set or something that you'll be able to just fish out if you get super lucky. So that's kind of the overall plan there. And I guess Edgar, you can maybe go a bit more into like the merchant thing and how that will work with purchasing and selling items in game, because it's
Yeah.
not as you imagine it usually is, where it's like a flat pricing on everything. So yeah, go ahead.
Actually, before I jump to that, one super cool thing we're thinking about is adding regular day and night cycle, and this could offer,
All
uh,
right.
yeah, fishing something interesting. So there could be some stuff you can only catch in the nighttime, some stuff you can catch in the daytime, and like overall, like these consumable items will be again adding more and more depth to gameplay and combat, as you will be able to carry those food items with your shaman in the battles and basically use them on demand when you most need them. Yeah. And along with the fishing, we're introducing trader. So it will be an NPC which will act as a general store and will allow you to purchase and sell items directly there. But what's really interesting is the way how we will organize that. So the trader itself, it will act as a automated market maker. So based on the quantity of items, basically based on the stock, uh, the price will change. So if we, let's say, have like fishing rods for a sale in the trader market, um, and the stock is full, let's say the one fishing rod will cost like 100 B. If stock is only 25, then the price will gradually increase to find a sweet spot between demand and supply. And what's more interesting, it also allows you not only to buy but also to sell at those prices. So this will become like a off-chain DEX, basically, where some of items will be tradable right into the game. And along with that, we're also planning to introduce P2P trading, which will give you ability, like the same way you're going and like challenging other opponent to PvP battle, you will be also able to kind of invite him to trade. So yeah, with that NPC and trader, it's really interesting mechanic to bring in like automated market making algorithms in a place. But I think it's something what will allow us to keep demand and supply in really good balance, and will just further expand player economy and basically increase the liquidity for all the items you have currently on Zeeverse.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, good. So this is kind of the gist of it. We're gonna publish the more detailed kind of roadmap in the docs in the coming days, so you guys can look into it, read into it, and then ask some questions for reference. And as I mentioned, of course, somewhere in the middle, we may or may not have an awesome event come up that we'll have to switch to. That may be an incredible opportunity for Zeeverse. Not something that we're still, 100% sure about, because nothing is confirmed. But, if that happens, then of course we'll have to make room for the event, and then adapt with everything else. And something that we'll try to do better, perhaps this time, is so we had an absolutely beautiful graphic roadmap last time. We'd love to make one this time as well. I think we will. But we'd want to update these estimates that we'll get more often. So let's say once a month, revise all the estimates so everyone's always on board. with everything that's happening, because we know that some of these features that we went over were promised, let's say, this month or last month, but as it turned out, the event for the Genesis Mint was much more grand than we imagined. So a lot of development resources went into that. And so our mission now is to kind of use all of the stuff that we have built up so far, and make good use of it, in order to free up the development resource for all these new things. Um, and yeah, once that's done, once fishing is released, we're gonna go into beta, and after the beta, the stuff that you can look forward to is going to be, let's say, a new lobby or maybe even a series of lobbies. It's going to be the island mint where you'll be able to get your hands on your new personal land. It's going to be new professions like alchemy with potions and mining. And that's where we're going to, roll into our whole creator economy side of things. And of course, big part, is going to go towards dungeons and dungeon updates with co-op and raids. Perhaps we may even squeeze in a raid before that in an MVP format where you'll be able, to not go to a dungeon but go and fight a boss in some way or another. So something cool that we'll be looking into as well, and so evolution as well, of course. And so all of those updates, we don't want to throw any estimates on them because we have to go through these things first. But I'd imagine the next mint, if we, once we have one, it's going to be with a land, and that's going to come probably, sometime in mid to late autumn, November, December, depending on how good things go with all of the rest of this. And that's kind of the summary. So, yeah, let us know if you got more questions. We'd be happy to, dig into some more of this stuff. So, I see. So maybe you could do an infinite dungeon for those who are already the maximum dungeon. So there's no progress in the number of dungeons, but players with high level be able to challenge themselves and maybe compete for a specific rank. So infinite dungeons, not sure how you mean that, because of course, in order to progress in the higher dungeon, you have to level up your Z, and that's kind of so it cannot really be infinite because it's going to break the whole idea of, hey, we have to have a cap, so we reserve some gameplay for new players so they can catch up when they come. um, yeah, but exactly. So what Abra just said, that it's quite repetitive at the moment, and so one thing that we are looking into is that when new dungeons come, is that we're gonna split them by levels. Let's say once we have three different dungeons, it's gonna be that, let's say in the starting dungeon you'll only be able to level up from level 1 to 30, for example, and then once you reach that one, a new dungeon is gonna open up with new bosses, and everything else. But that dungeon is only going to open up once you reach level 30. And so, kind of split the dungeons more into these fragmented pieces to keep it more interesting and dynamic. And it's probably going to get even more interesting once we start doing more dungeon item drops. So, let's say when there's bait or fishing rods, uh, once there's several dungeons, the quality or the level of the bait you get is going to drop depending on the dungeon you're in, or some other items that we'll introduce in the future. Items and materials and all of that. So cool. Um, Thank you. Thanks for the compliment. We do appreciate all the all the feedback, all the good words, all the bad words, everything in between. So did the team talk about estimate timeline when the Z is going to be released? So the Z withdrawals are going to come out with the first big update that's going to come with the power ups in the coming weeks. That's when the Z are going to become withdrawable, and much more information is going to come out on that probably next week, and how we can as we get a good estimates from our developers. Um, so that's kind of about the Z withdrawals. So dungeon leveling.
Essentially, this will be like a few pretty busy months, and we'll be like aiming to release an update every 2 or 3 weeks. So we want to keep it in small bites, give you something all the time, collect feedback, and along with all those updates, we'll be like focusing on quality of life things.
So
Oh yeah, there is a question about like new Z's. Um, we are currently working on already 2 or 3 weeks working on full combat validation refactoring. Uh, what it means, it will solve like bunch of bugs, but also it will give us a platform to introduce new Z's in a way easier way. So there is a chance we may decide to drop in few new Z's in a mix. We have for sure like concepts and models for them ready, but the biggest challenge is actually to bring in them technically and balance wise. So right now we're preparing a base for that. Um, yeah, I guess at some point we may decide to introduce music as well, but no promises, at least in short term for that.
So I'm trying to figure out what line it is saying here with the infinite dungeons. I think it's going to take a bit more time for me to kind of wrap my head around. Perhaps you guys could drop this suggestion about the infinite dungeons in the suggestions forum, so we could, after the AMA, discuss it a bit there, describe it as good as you can, maybe give an example and how it may work. And if it turns out as a cool system that you guys are interested in, of course we're gonna explore whatever you put your head to. So yeah, that's about it for now. I think otherwise, thanks everyone so much for coming. Uh, and honestly, I'm kind of happy to see the turnout, 40 people. Even though crypto is quite in a dead state at the moment, with NFTs. So happy to see the players. Of course, one more thing I wanted to mention is a very important thing is our plan for improving communication through the game. So with this first update, we also plan to introduce a notice board so that essentially these 1,500 people players that we do have in the game, so they get notified about these events and all these updates in the game, because up to now all of this has been coming through Twitter and Discord, and there's a lot of players who don't maybe even know that we have a Discord. So one of our marketing goals is to improve this communication across the channels and give the opportunity for people in the game to discover everything that's going on as well. So that's kind of that. Of course, marketing wise, we're also uh, oiling up our gears and getting a bit, speeding up with our work with guilds and creators. These are kind of two big directions that we work in. We've already launched a collaboration with this Indian guild called IndieGG and had, I think, around the last few days, it's been around 300 new people who signed up. And they actually play because they have like a quest of theirs where there's a leaderboard for them to reach a certain dungeon level. And a cool part is that once we have, let's say, the PvP leaderboard and perhaps come up with some generalized XP system or something like that, we'll be able to run more awesome quests. And of course, because quest is something we want to, look into as well, of expanding that whole part. So bit by bit, the general goal is it to make the gameplay replayable and fun. Uh, you know, that so that even if you reach the top level, you can come back into the game and have fun while we work on growing the brand and everything that comes with it. So thank you to everyone who's come and joined. Oh, maybe one update about mask boosts. Edgar, maybe you could mention that.
Yeah, so it will also like the staking is going really well. We saw that there is around 73% of total mass supply already staked, and that's counting in the treasury what we have. So obviously those won't be staked. So realistically, we have around 85% of all masks staked. So those masks are currently basically fighting and farming for Z airdrop. And along with one of these updates, what we just talked through on the roadmap, we will be adding in-game benefits for those who have staked their masks, which will give faster XP earning rates, better V-drop rates. So essentially, dramatically improve the overall experience, progression experience in the Zeeverse. And yeah, and alongside that there is like many smaller difficult different things we will be adding, which probably are not worth to mention in this AMA, but will be definitely thought through. Whenever we add like a new feature, we are also focusing on fixing and improving existing things. So this will just naturally come along with that. Yeah.
Sounds good. Exactly. So, okay, thank you guys. Thanks everyone for joining. If you have more questions, drop them in the AMA channel. We'll answer, as the evening goes on. So, thanks everyone for coming, and talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye bye.